Hello everybody, this is Havoc and welcome back to Victoria 3 Developer Diaries. I'm trying to jump back into these mainly for my own sake, but also in this dev diary in particular was a good one for me to jump into, simply because I'm not going to really address Voice of the People. I will simply because it's in the developer diary, but I haven't played Victoria 3 in a decently long time. But the contents in this developer diary don't necessarily play to having to have someone recently played the game. You'll see here in just a minute, but regardless, I want to thank you so much for watching the video in advance, and we're going to get right on into it. So developer diary number 87, Voice of the People post-release update. This is going to be short and sweet. They say short and sweet, but it's actually decently long. So 1.3 Voice of the People launched a few days ago, big update in the particular, the political subsystems. But there's been some balance issues, and to be quite frank, after watching a few reviews and listening to some people play the game, I am kind of glad that I missed the big push here, simply because it seems to be a little bit out of whack and not quite along what was expected, I think, both from the community and the reception from Paradox. Now, that being said, the things I want to focus on are really, really crucial here. Victoria 3's immersion packs are meant to enhance the depth of a particular aspect of the game for Voice of the People. That aspect is political agitation and revolutions. France is a great country to showcase these mechanics, and we use French aesthetics and a wealth of new art, but the interest does not make it a country pack. Now, I will say, based on the reviews and based from people that I've watched, it is a country pack. Like, I know they may not have been intending to do it, and I know and understand that France is a political turmoil at the time, but I do feel like everything that they pushed for it did essentially make it a country pack with some spillover into other countries. I'm not really sure how they could have made that a little better, maybe not had so many characters focused in the French sphere of influence. That's relevant in a little bit, but it did seem a bit too focused on a country pack with not enough content therein to really encourage people to play other countries, to really get the Voice of the People aspect in there. However, the new map, UI skin, and command room table are available even if you don't play as France. And with the theme selector, they're rolling out with the Dawn of Wonder, which is an art pack coming. You'll be able to customize which theme combos you want. Now, again, this is where they kind of are justifying it. Historical agitators appear across the world, several new characters interacting, relating to the agitators, as well as coups apply regardless which country you play. They do, but not to the extent as they do with France, for at least from what I've seen. Rest assured, we'll be rolling out country-specific content and other expansion products and updates to immersion packs. So I almost feel like in this area, a country pack is something that you do after like 3 or 4 years of development. I really feel like that there's a lot of mechanics that they need to flesh out that has a game-wide, regardless of the country that you play kind of deal. Again, Voice of the People was supposed to do that, but I really feel like they didn't accomplish that goal super well. So in the future, immersion packs or expansion packs in general should have a world-spanning mechanic that really truly does affect most countries in the majority, if that makes sense. So Voice of the People was a little bit of a hit or miss from what I've seen, which gives them good feedback so they can understand how they want to craft things in the future. So country pack really was, even if they aren't saying it is, but regardless, it's all right. After release, we received feedback suggesting that 1.3, released alongside Voice of the People, has had greater impact in the DLC itself. I'll always be okay with this, by the way. This is partially because we needed to introduce a significant number of new events to support the new agitators and revamp the revolution progression system. However, the main reason for this perception is our approach to DLC development. This is a new approach, in my opinion, an approach that's a little more particular to Victoria 3 than we've seen in the past, even with Crusader Kings 3. Where we don't want to lock essential mechanics behind paywalls. Mechanics spread out over multiple DLC tend to fragment the community, make mod management harder, complicates building new features on top of old ones, can cause features to become unbalanced over time. As an example of this approach, based on your feedback, we elected to include the Exiles mechanic in the free update rather than DLC to address concerns about future game balance. While there's a risk this reduces the perceived value of the DLC, it ensures that the core gameplay experience remains intact and allows for future expansion without limitations. I will never complain if a free update offers more material for people who are just playing the game than the DLC. Now, the issue then becomes a price point at which the DLC should be added to value. But along with that, I think, and I know free is free, but it's not really free. Free takes development. So while it's free for us, the regular players who don't invest in the DLC, there is still an invested development cost. So what I want to see in the future is, okay, well, if that's how you're going to go, and if the DLC doesn't quite add as much value as you feel the free update does, do you reduce the price of the DLC, make it more appealing to sell to more people, therein covering the development costs of the free update? Or are you going to then approach your marketing scheme as, well, the DLC needs to be more expensive because, again, free development is not free development. It still costs money, resources, people's time, people's priorities. So this is a great thing. I will always be okay with free updates having just boatloads of content because that encourages people to get back into the game without shoveling out more money if they don't feel like it. So I'm not upset whatsoever at this. Now, the Voice of the People DLC still offers a range of unique content, such as new events, stunning artwork, exclusive mechanics for its owners. And while we understand that the number of features and improvement in the free update can lead to a lower perception of value for the DLC, we do not believe that the answer here is to simply paywall more features. Good job, Paradox. I'm okay with this. Instead, we'll strive to learn and improve from the criticisms of the content in Voice of the People without compromising our principal focus, which will remain on the core gameplay experience. So that's a great approach. I am okay with Paradox taking a stand saying we're not going to paywall these some of these big main features because that affects progression down the road. I think we see that a little bit with Europa Universalis 4. They are still cranking out content, but from what I have heard, and I played a decent bit, couple hundred hours as a rookie, that there's some major expansions that just completely revolutionize the game to where you're kind of left behind in the dust if you haven't invested several $100s into all the DLC mechanics. Now, again, that's kind of Paradox's standard. I'm not necessarily okay with it. I'm not okay with it. But from what we're seeing here, Victoria 3 is maybe a new step in direction in how they approach DLC, how they approach free content, and the costs therein. I'm always okay with not paywalling major features because it does leave a good chunk of the community in the dust, and that's how you lose the value of the game. So I'm okay with it. Now, on the topic of lessons learned, in case you missed it, it was originally a pre-order bonus for Voice of the People. The agitators Jules Brunet, Georges Clemenceau, and Ali de Tocqueville. I probably butchered all of those. I'm working on French a little bit on the side, but I probably butchered all those. They were made available to everyone who owns Voice of the People the day after release. So again, that was a pre-order bonus where those three agitators were locked behind that. They instead released them for free, or at least to the people who had bought the DLC. We didn't realize quite how valuable these characters would be, so they thank you for saying, hey, that's not cool, and they allowed them in the DLC as a whole. Now, we're going to get into the distant future. And we can have a discussion in the comments section because I do want to know just how interesting a day-night cycle is for you people. Finally, a note about the more distant future. Many of you noticed with the availability of an expansion pack to upgrade from the base game of the Grand Edition, 2 additional products for Victoria 3 were soft announced. The aforementioned Dawn of Wonder art pack and Sphere of Influence, their first major expansion. Again, Voice of the People is an immersion pack. We are getting the Sphere of Influence, which is a major expansion. We can't get a lot of details, obviously. As a result, there's a lot of speculation, of course. But first off, Dawn of Wonder will include a day-night cycle. It is very, very customizable, and naturally you can turn it on and off, which is great. But you can also set an example to scale it to in-game time, so a full cycle could take 1 day or 1 year, depending on your preferences, or even sync it to your computer clock for cozy nighttime play, and it looks terrific in action. So I will admit personally, I know community-wise, day-night cycles aren't exactly thrilling, but I do like the customization of it because I'll be honest, I really do enjoy day-night cycles. And if I'm not on speed 5 and the day-night cycle is just constantly scrolling past, like I believe it is in Hearts of Iron 4, then that's great. If I can have a day-night cycle that lasts a year, that's kind of cool. It'd be cool to play a significant portion of a year in Victoria 3 during the night. Or again, if I'm playing during the day, have it set to my time. If I'm playing at night, I get to have some fun, cool things. It would be really cool, especially as a YouTuber like myself, to allow the community to see essentially what time I recorded a video. As dorky as that sounds, you could say, oh, wow, okay, well, he set his clock to real time, which means that, all right, he's deep in the heart of night recording this for me, which I think would be kind of a fun little, not role playing, but just kind of a little bit of an immersion to get into the life of a YouTuber. YouTubers are weird. So we see this right next to each other. This is actually pretty cool. It would be interesting to see if it's just lights, if it's just literally a light cycle, or if things do get quieter during the nighttime. That would be pretty interesting. Make it a little bit awkward for the whole year thing, because you would essentially spend, half of a year with little to no noise, but would still be interested to know more of what it looks like. Of course, it doesn't affect the paper map view, but if you enjoy watching and listening to your little towns while playing, makes the world come alive. So again, there does seem to be some sound quality differences. Now, the day-night cycle isn't everything in the art pack. There'll also be a hefty assortment kind of things in the immersion pack. So themes are going to be pretty cool too. I enjoy the themes based on your country or your faction country that you choose in Crusader Kings 3. So I think having thematic art assets for different countries in Victoria 3 is just a cool immersion step in the right direction. Now, secondly, regarding Sphere of Influence, as mentioned in the description, among several other features, this major expansion will add power blocks, which lets you spread your influence across the world via soft power. Now, this is a little more additional content that we're going to get on this idea of influencing other countries from a soft power perspective. Now, the base game already has features that model this from Victoria 3, which are subjects and customs unions. Now, you can read right there what the customs union and subjects are. It's essentially forcing a country's market to come into yours with different diplomatic statuses therein. Now, the idea behind power blocks is to make a shared market merely one of numerous ways in which countries can cooperate with or exploit each other. Currently, that's really the only system. The market system within Victoria 3 is the only way you can have such a direct influence. And while it's cool and while it's interesting and it's even beneficial sometimes as a smaller country, it is the only way right now to kind of soft grow that power. Now, the most fundamental of these is the core mechanic itself will be part of the free update delivered alongside the expansion. So again, we're seeing this where they're not locking the major features, like the overwhelmingly revolutionary features. They are not paywalling that. And it's simply going to be, as we'll see here in a second, that it's more features of, how do I put this? It's more intricate features that allow that major one to be a little more effective maybe. But if it is more effective with the DLC, that's a game balance change, and I'm not okay with that. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of features. We'll get into it in just a second. So much like with Voice of the People, we don't want to fall into the trap of making the base game on its own obsolete over time by locking key mechanics behind paid expansions. I'm okay with this, so much so. The various ways in which players can customize power blocks should help make different great powers more distinct, enhance interaction and dependencies between nations, make influence and prestige feel more meaningful, and so on. I love all of those because influence and prestige is just kind of a bar thing that I deal with or I limit my interactions with. It's not super interactive. It's not, it doesn't give me much joy, I guess you could say that. It's simply a thing that I do to play the game. So that'll be, that's great. That's awesome. While some of these options will be the free update, others will be in the paid expansion. So why call the expansion Sphere of Influence? Well, the simple answer, it's a terrific term to describe what sorts of features it contains. There we go. It may evoke the memory of one beloved mechanic from Victoria 2, but the expansion itself is intended to be a broad enhancement of diplomatic gameplay with a variety of features. And as always, the fundamentals will not be paywall. On that note, the Sphere of Influence expansion blurb also says that investing into foreign economies will be a feature. I'm very excited to see what that looks like. And there have been concerns that this means we're going back on our earlier promise of making foreign expansion available in a free update. I see what they're saying here. To be clear, we are always going to allow for foreign expansion into your subject nations, with or without the sphere of influence expansion. The expansion will add a great deal more options to power blocks, foreign expansion, interference in other countries' politics, and much more. But the core systems will be in the free update, since that's how we keep the current and fresh and build on them in the future. So this is the idea that investing into foreign economies, I think in regards to this statement, that the terminology of investing into foreign economies may be a little bit short-sighted and may be saying that it's only in certain areas. They are going to need to clarify what the sphere of influence paid features will be. Because as I just stumbled on as I was playing, or as I was explaining things to you guys, you can have a base mechanic that is free. That's awesome. And you can sort of invest into foreign countries, and that way foreign expansion can still occur. But if the paid DLC is so drastic that it allows you to essentially level up a little bit quicker, in single player, I could see how that would maybe not go so well, but in multiplayer, as long as everyone gets that same experience, then that's okay. So for example, if I have 5 of my buddies and I playing and only 3 of us have the DLC and we have more options than the other 2 buddies, for whatever reason, then that's not okay. That's essentially a pay to win schematic, and I don't enjoy pay to win. So they are going to need to really explain what they actually mean by free update will include foreign expansion, but the sphere of influence will allow you to do that more. Regardless, it seems to be that it's more than just simply investing in your foreign economies. It's not undermining them in just that financial format. It looks like we'll be able to influence political systems. We already sort of do influence technology just by the natural expansion mechanic regarding technology. But I'm really curious to see if we can't maybe fund some dissension. Maybe we can fund some agitators in different political climates. Sabotage would be actually a really, really cool feature. Can I go in and sabotage someone's industrial sectors? That way my market thrives more. There's a lot of really cool things that I think Sphere of Influence will be able to do for us. Anyways, there's a lot of speculation. I'm really, really eager to see what they are going to do with that, and that sounds like a really, really great step forward. Unfortunately, it is a little bit of a ways away. The release dates for Dawn of Wonder, and Sphere of Influence are on placeholder dates until respective announcements, but do roughly reflect reality. Sphere of Influence is scheduled for early 2024 to allow sufficient time to implement new features of considerable complexity, but that's not how long you'll have to wait for another major update. Woohoo! We're planning for another major free update with an open beta before 2023 is over, similar in scope to our 1.2 release. I feel like this was pretty darn successful. Again, due to my work and everything, I haven't been able to dive into the game for quite a long time, but I have watched lots of content. And especially, I gotta shout out One Probavarian because that dude is a train of content and I enjoy watching all of it. Highly recommend you head over there. You're probably already over there. But it's really, really good to see that open beta and the feedback we're able to get from that, which just helps Paradox to do things a little bit better. Some of the improvements to the diplomatic gameplay we're currently developing for the updates. So we have some diplomatic gameplay things. Alongside Sphere of Influence is targeting this release rather than the one in Q1 24. You'll hear a bit more about that next week as we return to the post-release plans. All right. So 1.3 is, or at least an open beta for another major free update is coming. But guys, overall, I think it's a great statement that they said here. And if I want to take a bold statement, I think they even mentioned that in their recently released kind of financial overview statement thing, which I still need to go watch, and I would recommend that you do too. But essentially what we're seeing here is that Paradox is making a somewhat different development standard than what they've done, I felt like, in the past. Whereas major features are locked behind a paywall, here major features come with the free update, but the DLC enhances those mechanics in a much more immersive way. But again, you're going to have to balance that. Do you kind of make your strategy statement on Paradox's side Well, we're going to keep these updates a little more expensive to help cover the cost, which then it's not a free update. But again, terminology and marketing, you got to have it. Or do you say, okay, we understand that we can chop the DLC by 33% in terms of its price, making it more enticing for people to buy it in. You have more people buying it 33% off than you do at full price, which therefore allows you to cover the costs of the free update. I have to remind you this, especially since I work in the games industry and I see the back end of game development. Nothing is free. And I hope you, the community, realize that a free update is not free to Paradox. And that's okay, but they still have to make up that financials. And if it gets to the point where the financials of the free update are not worth what comes out in DLC, then there's going to be an issue there, and they're going to figure out something which probably is going to impact us as the community negatively. Ladies and gentlemen, that's all I got for today. I hope that you enjoyed this little snippet and a new reinvigorated dive into Developer Diaries. Guys, let me know what you think in the comments section down below. I'm going to do my absolute best to stick with this because I need to get refreshed with Victoria 3, and I feel like there's a lot of really positive things coming in the future. That's all I got. I'll see you in the next one.